Hey guys, hey Wilson, how's it going? We are fixing to go over some practice CPC exam questions. See if I can't keep the shadows away from our view. Hello. Hey Ange. Hey Spencer. Hello everybody. We are going to do this CPC exam. We've got a lot of people fixing to take it this week and this weekend. Just answering messages. How's everybody doing? We are going to be coding a little bit from every section of the CPT book so that people that have CPC certification exams coming up this week and next week will be able to have a little bit of bonus practice on that for sure. I wanted to let everybody know that we have, well, I don't know about the we, but I finished the 2022 ICD10 Guidelines. I just took the guidelines, put them on a Word document, and then I sort of halfway divided up the Word document, and then I added notes to the side. There's like a color code thing that's like for sequencing. If I have anything in a little section that's colored green, you know, you code it first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, whatever, by the color code. If it's yellow, it's a key detail. If it's blue, it's super important. And then if it's a red, then that means usually it's a do not, ever, or an except in a certain situation. And then I go through each word line by line of all the coding guidelines, let you know everything there is to know about it. You know, about the seventh character can either be about the trauma, being initial visit or whatever, or if you're dealing with eyes, your seventh character will be mild, moderate, or severe for eyes. And then I put in examples of things that might be going on. I did screenshots of exactly what NEC and the punctuation, all kinds of stuff in here so that you would know exactly what are they talking about in this particular guideline and what it would look like in the book and what it means. There's a lot of information in here, stuff that they just don't teach you in coding courses. For sure. But then once you get into the guidelines for like sepsis or diabetes or anything, I have examples of how you would code it, what it would look like in a test question for sure. Even what those little yellow lines mean in your index. So that's pretty cool. I have coding examples for sepsis, you name it, external causes, injuries. I did this last year, but I turned, the 33 or so pages of the guidelines from 33 pages to like almost 60. This year, I've turned them into like 100 and I don't know how many pages, 107 or something. So I pretty much really went all out line by line, trying to make sure that everybody has examples of what types of situations might occur, how you would code it if you saw it in a particular question, what it would look like. And those notes are available on my Etsy page if you want them page by page. I will be teaching all the new guidelines for 2022 when we hit January 1, 2022, and we'll teach you all that for free on lives on TikTok, of course, and continue doing TikToks on them. But just in case you wanted line for line, page by page, you have it there. The link is in bio, so when you're off your live, you can click on my face and you'll see it, and there's a coupon there too. So I'll show you what it would look like. My little thing. There it is. Coding by Jen. Medical coding by Jen. And then they'll be there wherever they are. I have some practice exams and stuff. And I still have the 2021 CPT book all listed there. But the guidelines are here for 2022 if you wanted them. Yeah, and I put a video on there so you could see what all it looks like too, but that's where they're at. Hopefully that's helpful, but I will teach you all the guidelines for free once we get into that year, so don't worry about that. But hopefully I can get everybody to pass in 2021 and nobody has to buy any new books, and that'll save y'all some money too. If you need to know how to prep your book for the CPC exam, I have a step-by-step with pictures and screenshots for free on my website at Medical Coding by Jen. You can go there, and in the middle of the page, even without even signing up for the website, I have a 10-question E&M practice exam for you. It's super hard. It's for people that usually are already CPCs, but it's good practice if you're not a CPC yet and you're trying to become one. You get the answers right away, and it's, you don't have to sign up for the website. But if you do sign up for the website, it's free. And I do have two blogs there that will show you how to do the book step by step, from boxing, of course, highlighting, distinguishing the codes different from one to another, all the AKAs, how do I add clinical information to each page, and then also for all the anatomy, what to do and how to add to your anatomy pictures, your vocabulary. Everything's listed there just to show you what to do so that you can prep your book for your CPC exam. Most of the exam is going to be in your, over 100 questions will be in the CPC book. So prepping it is super key to getting to the answers super quick, because you only have 120 seconds per question, and that does not include bathroom breaks. So you need to be able to research the question super fast and get the answer really quick. So the more you have done in your book, the better. If you want copies of every page done for you, of course that is in the link, but that's what I'm here to do, is to teach you how to do all this for free. During my lives, I try to do them every Monday night for sure, usually 2 hours long, and then either Friday or Saturday, and then also Sunday. I'm doing tonight, Wednesday, because I have several people I've been mentoring for a couple of months who are coming up to take their exam this weekend or next weekend, and I just want to do all I can to make sure that everybody passes. Even if you didn't buy anything from me, you've just been paying attention and participating in our little, we have a messenger group too, that if you follow me on Messenger, Jen Brewer, same profile picture as here on TikTok, we talk every day on that messenger group, help out each other. I do teachings in there. Just message me there and I can add you to our group. You can't find it and get added personally, but this is just from today. Oops, I'm trying to message people. But we were, people have questions, they ask, and we help out each other all day long and follow each other's progress there too. And let's see. She can't find it. Weird. Have 26 people on now. Oh no. She says she can't find me. Oh, my camera. Come on. You can focus better than that. Don't start. It doesn't like me having too many things for it to focus on. But the main things you need to do besides boxing your parent to your child code is after you do the box around them, and you'll know they're a child code because they're indented underneath. When you get back to one that is back over to that left-hand side, you know it's its own core code. Some codes won't have a child code, so that's okay. You don't need to box them. But when they do have child codes that are indented underneath it, be sure and put a box around them. Highlight everything that's after that semicolon, because that's super important. And if you look at the instructions in the front of this book on how to use this book, it actually tells you and shows you how to do this. Then you'll highlight what's on the child code. You're going to mark your do nots. And if by chance it tells you to use something with something, you're going to mark it in blue instead of red. And sometimes it'll even tell you when to use a modifier. Your out of sequence codes. This book is in numerical order, and it's very frustrating when you're in the CPC exam is to run to a numerical number because you know you're going in numerical order and something is out of order and you can't find it. And they tell you to go look through this sequence, or they tell you to go find a chart for it, whatever nonsense they're doing, when they could just actually tell you what page number it's on, and then you can go find it. So go through your entire book, find all your red codes, put the page numbers down. I also have a list that's in the back of the book. We have one of these appendix in the very back that Appendix N, and I went through and wrote down all the page numbers down for you if you want it. It's also in the link in bio on Etsy, but you can do it. Promise you can. Some of them are very frustrating. Some of them are like 700 pages away from another one, but you can find it, and you can do all this stuff, the boxing, the highlighting, and the page numbers while you're sitting in front of the TV watching the kids, and it's a little mindless. You don't have to do a lot, but color, so is what I call this. So you can do this without having to be separated from the family and car rides, whatever. Also, you need to write down, if you can, what these codes are dealing with on this particular page, because sometimes you're looking through codes, and if you know right away, oh, I'm not supposed to be in the esophagus, I'm supposed to be in the binary tract, then you know you're in the wrong area. And you can eliminate codes really quickly if you have that information listed down. So after you've boxed, after you've highlighted, after you've fixed your out of sequence codes, you're going to want to go through and mark little stuff by each CPT code that you can. It's a little bit different from everything else, especially like if you're dealing with just a biopsy with this one. That one really helps because some things are a complete procedure under a particular code or section, but some things are just a biopsy or just a fine needle aspiration, and those procedure codes are distinguished differently. Some are incision and drainage. Anything with those key terms, go on and write it beside the code, because that will save you a half a second. Instead of having to read the code description to find out what's going on in that particular code, you have it right in front of you. Sometimes the difference in the words is this one is an intra, M-E-D, but this one is an intra with an intram, with an A instead of, see the A, intraarcular, when some of them are the intramedial. So if you go on and write the differences there, that will save you a half a second of going through and trying to find the key term that is different. Once you finish that, then you're going to do a Google search of some of these body parts that they have listed here in the fronts of each sections and add to parts that are drawn in but maybe not labeled, because that is super helpful for some of these test questions. You're going to write your prefixes, your suffixes, your abbreviations for that particular section, just related to that section in the front pages before you code. That will help you out a whole bunch. This should probably take you 60 hours to do the complete book, honestly, just of those things. And then you can work with making sure you understand each code by what's going on in them, and then adding in some practice examples questions, sort of. You're not going to write like, what is an office visit for an established patient? Is it A, B, C, or D? What you're going to do is write just a little note that says, like an ER with chest pain, we coded this with that modifier with that EKG. Super simple, something that you would use in the office every day if you were working in a clinic and needed to know short, quick information about CPT codes that you're working in every day and what they might commonly be found coded with. If you do 2 of these per page throughout the whole book, it'll add more time, of course, to your prep for your CPC exam, but it will be super helpful for your CPC exam because you've got 2 examples per page, and all the pink codes highlighted in my book came from my CPC exam. When I took it, I scheduled 1 exam right away, and I went in person, and just my objective was to highlight all the codes that were a possible answer from the CPC exam in my books so that I could go home and audit those codes to see how many they chose from each section, what types did they choose from each section, and what kind of questions went along with this. How did they ask me questions about those certain codes? And I learned a lot by auditing their exam. I learned about how they ask questions, of course, and what kind of examples I would need to have for each one of those if it was going to be that answer, And I've been putting, and I did this on my own, and then I saw that everybody else was failing their CPC exams, and I thought, well, I've got some great information here. I bet I could help some people, and started doing little TikToks about what information I had, what codes I found in the test, and how to distinguish the differences between those. And it turned out to be pretty beneficial, and everybody that I've helped has been passing their CPC exam. I've got one little lingering person, Miss Jess. I really hope she gets it this time. She is going to take her repeat test in a couple of weeks on the 11th, and I hope she is going to pass. Some of these test questions are really tough on this exam. They really do write the questions psychologically difficult, so that if you read the question from beginning to end and then looked up every CPT code, you are definitely going to get confused. you are going to pick the wrong answer. So I try to take the human nature out of what you're going to be doing for the CPC exam. You're not going to have time to read the questions nor look up every CPT code. And if you do, the questions are written in a way that are going to confuse you and make you think it's one answer or another, because they want that repeat test money, of course. So if you will work on the process of elimination with me, and we'll do some examples in a minute, I will teach you how to avoid the psychological part of the CPC exam and get around their maneuvers to help you fail. I wanted to go over one more time. I'm going to go over it quicker this time. We've been gathering information. There are several versions of the CPC exam. People have been sitting for like it'll say version A, B, C, D, E, and F of the CPC exam. So I've been collecting them by exam. I've got most information on exam A right now, and I've written some of those ideas and terms up. If you happen to sit for a CPC exam and you get test version A right now, during October and November, maybe even December, you will see these vocabulary terms. Be sure you know what the sesamoid bone is for and where it's located. Medicare Part A pays for nursing services, nursing facilities, and I'm going to catch up on some messages while y'all read this. Hello, Kimberly. And PRI, I don't know how to say that. Hello. And Kim's in here. And DC asked, what are we coding? We're going to code a bunch of stuff. I answered, how do we get a copy? Sonia, oh, she's taking hers on November 6th. Do I have her down? Let's see. I have Ange the 23rd and 24th. Spencer, oh, Ange too. If you're on my website on the Jen Brewer, not Jen Brewer, Medical Coding by Jen. If you want to schedule a one-on-one tutoring with me in my books before your CPC exam, you can do that there. It's $27 an hour. It's not that big of a deal. But we go through the book. I know last night we did one with Ange, and we were on there for an hour and a half, and we got through half of the CPT book, and we'll do another half on Friday. And then I think she sits for her exam next weekend. So super helpful and beneficial. Miss Ashford, if she's in here, she's done my tutoring before too. Let's see, Connor, we've got that one in November. Spencer, allergic. I like that one. I am Linda's doing it this weekend. Chelsea, Tiffany, Steph, Shade, Libra. I got another Ange, another Wilson. Oh yeah, Wilson. And then we've got this other one, Sonia. November 6th. I think that's my first November 6th. Everybody else is going the 11th or the 13th or something like that. You're starting your program in the spring, Miss Lena. I don't really like coding programs. I think if you just get the study guide from AAPC and you study that study guide and then get a mentor or a study group and then you prep your book like I explained earlier in this live, then you can do the CPC exam with a lot less stress, a lot less busy work, and a lot less money. Some of those courses are $2 to $3 grand. That's ridiculous. And you're going to walk out of that course not knowing anything and having very low confidence. I'll be surprised if you have a different outcome, but I hope so. I truly hope so. You don't need a lot of medical background to pass the CPC exam, and I'll show you during my live. You're going to pick out key terms out of these CPT code descriptors, and you are going to search for them in your question and answer. It's going to be okay. Hey, Victoria. She's going to do a course too. Good gracious. Good luck. I've not seen or heard or talked to anybody that has had a favorable outcome taking a course. And I have AAPC's course for COC, CIC, CPB, and the medical records auditor thing. And if I had to learn my job off of those 4 courses, yeah, it wouldn't happen. Can we use written notes on books in our exam? Of course you can. Creepy. If you will even look at the beginning of your books, the beginning of the ICD-10, I'm sorry, I'm old school, your CPT book, on the instructions on how to use these darn books, it tells you to highlight. It says to use, not the box method that I use, but a different method that is copyrighted that I won't say. Even the AAPC's study guide from AAPC, says, write in your book. You must move your guidelines, underline them, highlight them, write in your books. It says, write in your books. It encourages you to write in your books. Everybody, I don't know why this huge wives' tale is going around the internet to say, oh, you can't write in your book. They're your books. You spent $350 for them. Write all you want in them. The problem is being able to find your information where you need it. So you need to stay organized. And the other problem is no sticky notes. Don't make up no tabs. I even recommend not tabbing any of your books because the CPC exam is all numerical order. It is already coded for you. You will not be using any index. You won't even have time to look at any guidelines. You will be running from numbers to numbers. All my tabs are in the book still. Don't tab crap. You're running from number to number. You only need to know where the numbers are at. So utilize this book all you can. Write all your governing stuff, your important, what does Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, all that in the front pages before your E&N section. And then keep your information organized by section. Don't put stuff randomly everywhere. You just need to be able to find it quickly. But absolutely, write all you want in those books. Don't write all in one color. You're not going to be able to find it if it's all blue on one page of a ton of information. But write all you want. Even the CCA and the CCS people, y'all can write in your book. Y'all can even take a medical dictionary to your exam. It's wonderful. I wish we could. The AAPC CPC people cannot, but I wish we could. But absolutely, write all you want. Just don't add any papers to the binder, and don't add any sticky notes to the binder. But absolutely. How else are you going to be able to code a newborn baby when the codes say how many grams the baby weighs, but your test question shows you pounds and ounces? Do you have a conversion calculator in your head? Do you know how to do that? What if you wrote the calculator in your book? Then you would know how to convert it, right? You have to write in these books. You have to know what these codes say what they mean. You need to expect what kind of questions are going to be hit your way, and you need to prep your book to have that information readily available for you, or you're just going to miss that question because you didn't write in your book because you were told by somebody who's not ever passed a CPC exam, or didn't even read the notes or your emails from AAPC that say what you can and cannot do. There's information out there that says you cannot write lengthy notes, and that particular sentence is only based off of printing your ICD10 guidelines and bringing them with you on printed piece of paper. If you do that, you can't use the back side of that extra paper that you brought into your exam for notes, because that would give you 33 pages of the backside notes. So that one sentence got blown up into, oh, you can't write in your book at all. Well, it wasn't even talking about a book, one of your reference materials. It was only talking about printing out your ICD-10 guidelines and bringing those as extra pieces of paper with you. Anyway, you remember in kindergarten how your kindergarten teacher would tell you one thing, and then you'd all sit in a row and you'd pass around one little thing that she said, and then the last kid would say what happened in the little scenario that she told the first kid. And by the time it got down to the last kid, it was a bunch of garbage that didn't make any sense and wasn't even relatable to what was actually first said by the teacher. That's exactly how that wives' tale got started about not being able to write in your book. Lord help if you wasn't able to write in your book. Look at all my stuff. The anesthesia guidelines do not tell you about your anesthesia modifiers. Well, your anesthesia modifiers are a huge set of modifiers that are not listed in anesthesia, and you need to know those before you try to code these codes for the CPC exam. And if you don't get them in there and put there because they're in the HitPix book, then you're going to have 2 books open, and it's just a mess. Just get this stuff moved to the correct sections is all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything other than taking stuff from the ICD-10 book or stuff from the CPC book and putting it where it needs to go for sure. And adding little words like AKA, this means tonsils. So when you're talking about an intraoral procedure, including biopsy, not otherwise specified, and they're doing anesthesia, where is that location? Where would that be? And that happens to be in the tonsil area. So some things you find out from denial claims or from other students or from the publications of CPT. They do a book every year called the Insider View, and if you note, a lot of these CPTs do have stuff written down about the Insider View, and that's where you go and you find out more information about what these codes are at and what they're doing. They'll give you rationale, they'll give you clinical examples too, and those clinical examples are some of the stuff that I write into the books from the AMA. So you have to get this information to your current books if you want to know what the code means, what's going on in it, because all you're getting is 4 or 5 words when that book, The Insider, gives you pages of what's going on with that procedure and stuff. So super helpful there. I'm finished with some of these messages I'm getting. Oh, thank you for the rose. Yay. I be sure and follow everybody that sends stuff like that. There's Coupon Leah. I like her. Yep. I even get the proctor's instructions for AHIMA, AHIMA, and from AAPC, and I have the proctor instructions, and they tell you what the proctors are supposed to be looking for, and it's absolutely none of this. This is all perfectly fine. Write whatever you want in there. Irene, another one, November 13th. There's a lot of people taking the test this coming up soon. Irene the 13th. I'm taking mine December. Last day of your class. Good job, Jackie. I hope your class was beneficial. I was a guest instructor for AAPC for 2 lessons, and that was fun to do this year. I'm going through everything I can. You have on TikTok. Don't forget. Yep, and I got the quiz. I got a 150 question quiz on Etsy too, but don't forget, on YouTube, I post my repeat lives. It's just coding by Jen. So all these 2 or 3 hour sessions, if TikTok records them, sometimes it doesn't record them, but I post those on TikTok too so that you can look at them afterwards too. And if you did get the 150 question quiz, be sure and message me when you're done with it. You can either send me your answers and I'll grade it, or I'll just send you the answers, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I know yours is this weekend. I cannot wait. Pfeiffer is in December. F-E-I-F-E, December. And Miles, J. Miles, the 23rd. Oh my goodness, y'all all got to tell me if you pass or not. Sorry, Jackie, you didn't know. And they went so fast, I didn't learn anything. Isn't that a shame? And you spent all that money. I'm so shocked. I was really shocked by the lack of information that people really truly give out for the CPC exam, even in a course, when they've taken the course before and passed it, and they're instructors. The lack of information and help to pass that particular exam, the way it's structured, is so unhelpful. They're teaching you how to code. Well, coding is subjective, and you will learn your own way per job. Every job will code differently, every single one. So you will learn on the job. You won't learn anything in a coding course that will help you with ABC company coding. It won't work because they have their own contracts and stuff. People know this. They're out in the world working in the medical field just like I am, and they're charging people to share unhelpful information and rush them through a course of busy work to make them think that they're getting their money's worth, and they come out more confused and more stressed than before. You missed how you get my notes. My notes are on Etsy, Medical Coding by Jen, if you want page by page. Messenger group, if you want to join our chat group where we talk every day for help in anything going on in your life and coding. We chat every day. Just find me on Messenger under Jen Brewer, same profile pic as on TikTok, and message me. Let me know you want to join the group. You can join it. It's all for free. TikToks, you know where you're at there. Coding by Jen, Coding by Jen is my YouTubes, which is my repeat TikTok lives. Medical Coding by Jen will show you how to prep the book with screenshots. Has some practice exams on it for free, and you can schedule tutoring with me one-on-one. It's $27 before your CPC exam, and it's super helpful. We'll go through each chapter and make sure you've got it prepped and ready for your exam, or we can do the practice of elimination. Whatever you want to go over, we can go over. and you can schedule those at that website, but it's free to join and you get to see how to mark up the book. So, and then Etsy is where I have the PDFs that you can print out of page by page notes of the book. And I have 2022 guidelines up. Woo, that was fun to do. I worked 3 weeks on those guidelines and I added so much stuff, y'all. It's crazy, insane. I hope they're real helpful. So let's get back to what is on Exam A. If you take the CPC exam in person right now, October, November, if you're lucky enough to get that particular exam, I have some examples of actual words or test questions that were on that particular version of the exam. So be sure you know what this is, part of your musculoskeletal system. Be sure you know that Medicare Part A covers nursing facilities. And be sure and write in the front of your CPT book everything that you know about what Part B, C is, what Part D is. Be sure you know what a venous valves are. They are not connected with the circulatory system or cardiovascular. So those are musculoskeletal. When you move and retract your muscles, you have venous valves there. Be sure you know that. Thrombo, we've got an inflammation of the veins with blood clots. Be sure you know what that is. Be sure you know how to code sepsis. Sepsis has 4 different ways to code it. It's divided into 2 different ways, by with organ dysfunction or without organ dysfunction. Those 2 ways are separated into 2 different ways. That's how you get the 4 coding ways. Just regular sepsis, unspecified, whether there's organ failure or anything else going on with the body, would be 1 code. And then if you add another little thing that goes wrong during sepsis, you're going to have 2 codes. Another thing goes wrong, you're going to have 3 codes. Another thing that goes wrong, you'll have 4 codes. I have a cheat sheet for sepsis. Ooh, I forgot to send that to somebody last night. I did. That is Ange. I forgot to send you the sepsis thing. I'm making a note right now. I just realized that. Gosh. Okay. So I will send you my sepsis cheat sheet that I have for that. And I'll show everybody. I think I have it. Oops, wrong one. Sepsis is a pain in the butt to code. So that's my little worksheet. So right here, if it's that infection, you've got that many diagnoses. If it's sepsin with organ failure, you've got that many. If it's staph, you've got 2. If it's plain, it's 1. So that knowing those guidelines will super help you. Be sure you know what ARDS means, acute respiratory distress syndrome. Be sure you know what ABN means and what you do with it. Who it's it. Only Medicare patients have this, so be sure you know that. Be sure you know what that bone is for. Where is it in the body? Triplet delivery, there's going to be some ICD10 guidelines for that. Be sure you know about its 7th character and how it's different based on how many fetuses. So even if you're just looking at the answers and you've got a list of answers where the ICD10 code ends in 1, or another answer where it ends in 2, or another answer where it ends in 3, you know it's going to end in 3 if they say the word triplets, right? So you can eliminate a lot of answers by knowing certain things like that on the guidelines. Of course, if you're going to have a multiple pregnancy, then you're going to also have another diagnosis code that's going to go along with that. So be sure you have that. I have an example right there if you want to screenshot that real quick. How do you code multiple guidelines at once, like injuries with HIV? Be sure to note that, yes, you know that HIV is always HIV, but be sure to note if they're not in the office to be seen for HIV, then you code the other, whatever reason they're being seen first. Their broken wrist, then HIV, their pregnancy, and then HIV, those kind of things. Be sure you know your guidelines for that. Your guidelines for asymptomatic or symptomatic HIV. Be sure you know the differences. And be sure to know if a cancer has metastasized. Their primary cancer was in the brain. Then it metastasized to their lymph nodes and then got to their liver. Well, if they're seeing their liver doctor for their cancer, the liver, their metastasized cancer, will go first for the diagnosis code for that visit. Then you will get their primary, and then you will get their next metastasized area, which was lymph nodes. So you got to know the sequencing based off of what they're doing during their visit. And basically, most of the time, the guidelines are pretty specific that whatever is being treated that day is the first diagnosis code. So if they're being seen for a secondary cancer, then you code that first. Now, if they're being treated for a cancer, then you know their diagnosis code, the first one for that day, is always going to be the Z51 for their chemotherapy, radiation, or immunotherapy. So that's one little exclusion. So it doesn't matter what cancer is being treated that day, their primary, their secondary, or whatever, but you will always code the Z code first, which is usually never a first code unless it's there for a physical, well child, or for chemotherapy. It gets crazy. I'm still 21 messages behind, guys. I'm sorry. I'm still working on it. I'm just trying to get through this. The other thing is, be sure you know these last things about the cancer and neoplasms. These were some of the diagnoses that were on the practice, or on the, not the practice, but the actual CPC exam labeled Test A. And this is the HIPIX code that they had. There's also a code near it that's either the 30 or the 32 that is the same machine in rental, but it has a different description as to what's going on and being rented. So there's two right there together. But that is it for practice test A. I am going to move on to tonight's live. And I want to be sure and do some practice of elimination codes test questions so that you know exactly what to expect for the CPC exam. Your exam is 150 questions in 5 hours and 40 minutes, and you think that's a long time, but that only gives you 2 minutes per question. That doesn't include a bathroom break, a stretch, getting a drink. That all takes time away from your 2 minutes. So now you're down to, I don't know, it depends on how long it takes you to go to the bathroom. What if you're on your cycle that month? You know, it's ridiculous. So it's going to take time off. And then just searching the book per code takes more time. So basically, I always reference that you have 90 seconds to pick the right answer once you get to your codes. So it goes by fast, and that's per question, and you can't stop. You got to keep going. So it's brutal, really brutal. But I'm trying to come up with a way to show y'all how to take the test with the process of elimination that AAPC does recommend. And they do note they got a one sentence thing that says, okay, be sure and do the process of elimination, but they don't explain how to do it or how to practice it or what that means in detail of any sort other than that one sentence on their website and even in any of their courses, which is very frustrating for everybody involved. while y'all look at these CPT codes, I'm going to go through some of these messages. Aw, thank you, Ange. She said she has learned more with Jen than any AAPC class. Thank you so much. Yes, the link is, Irene, the link is in my bio. You can't click on it during the live, but once we're off the live, you can click on my little face, and there's a link in my bio. I live in Texas, and I assumed in order to take the exam, I had to take a course. Nope. If you will read the AAPC course site, or just go to their website that says what you need to take that course, there is absolutely nothing. You don't need anything. They suggest you take a course. They suggest you have an associate's degree of all things, but you absolutely do not. And none of that is going to prepare you for this exam. The way they have it written, the way they have you do it, in 90 seconds per question, you're not coding. The coding has already been done for you. You don't need to know how to code. You just need to know how to pick out the right answer super quick. And you're only going to be able to do that by doing a word search and eliminating codes based off knowing your guidelines or knowing your modifiers, knowing something about coding a little bit to be able to work your way through these answers to eliminate the wrong ones and pick the right ones within 90 seconds. And her name is Meesa. She failed her first exam by a few points, and they do care if your books are covered with hands. I don't know what that means. The AAPC class is a joke and a ripoff. Yeah, it is, Sonia. I mean, and they're charging so much for it. Oh my, there's more beneficial stuff on YouTube than anything in that class. I failed the first exam by a few points, and they do care about written notes. Not they're just shaking out your book and thumbing through it to make sure that you don't have anything inserted in your books. They're not going through your pages and reading what you have written. And I went in there with a rainbow of stuff, and nobody's ever said a word, and I have nothing in here that isn't already written here. I've just taken it to where I don't have to read the whole thing and write that this is a biopsy with an MRI. This is per lesion, because I need to know the guideline right there. Or some of them you do by the sum. You add up the sum of all the areas. I'm not doing anything that isn't legal, for sure, and they aren't going to care about any of this stuff that's here. And I can tell you that people will get my notes, do one section of their book, go take the exam, and they'll have 90% on that one section. And in the other sections where they didn't add any notes and they didn't box, they didn't highlight, they didn't add any clinical information, they didn't do their prefixes and suffixes, they still made a 50s or 60s in those sections. Just prepping this book sincerely helps. And AAPC is not going to care that you have that done inside your books at all. Yep, nothing taped or stapled. Absolutely, you can't add anything to your book. You can purchase exam practice quizzes A, B, and C from my website. I think they're $40 on Etsy. Yeah, you're supposed to, I think, Sonia, print them front and back. They used to let you print them just on the front pages, but then people were writing 33 pages of notes on the back of them. So I think they encourage you to print out your ICD-10s front and back guidelines, but I'm telling you, you are not going to have time in those 90 seconds when you're picking out which code it is, to reference a guideline. Those guidelines are difficult to interpret. You're not going to read anything in 90 seconds on that guideline that's going to help you determine which answer is correct. That I can't fathom that. I can't imagine that. Those guidelines are not easy to read. There's so much information in 2 sentences to decipher that those 2 sentences can send you from one book page to another book page to another book page, and they're telling you to index stuff before you look up codes. You're not going to have time. You're honestly, I'm sincere with that. It's a waste of time and money to print out your guidelines and have them with you. What you need to do is move your guidelines to the codes that are affected. I do this process in many of my lives. I show you how you take your guidelines and you actually move them to the actual ICD-10 codes that are affected. That work will benefit you more than doing anything else. Say this is a copy of a guideline page. This is for external causes. There's 5 of them, and you have to get them in order if you're going to code. The reason for the accident, whether it was intentional or not, where did it happen, what were they doing, and their status afterwards. That's a guideline. Very common guideline. Well, it doesn't help me to have it there. What does help me is if I move it to the index pages and label it there, and then if I make that and move it even further to the actual ICD-10 codes in the back of the book that are all labeled those. If I go to my burns actual codes and I write my guideline at the beginning, that I code the 3rd degree burns first, then the 2nd degree, and then the 1st degree. That's my order of sequence. Instead of up here where it says reference C1, A3, B, whatever, you're not going to have time. You move your guidelines to the actual codes. You write them in a way that makes sense to you, and that will help you more than anything with the guidelines. It'll help you out a whole lot more than anything else. And if you have ICD examples, you go to the codes, you write them down. This is a burn. You know, burns have to be done in a specific sequence. CPTs, then your ICD-10s with your external causes. If you write it near the code, then you've got it. Plus any external causes, you reference back to the main page where you wrote the original in the same color. Then you've got your guideline example written right there. Then you can follow it for any test questions. None of that, you're not going to have time for anything else other than moving your guidelines to the codes. That's why when I did my my 2022 guidelines this year, I put in a ton more examples so that everybody will be able to take those examples and move them straight to the diagnosis codes. So it will show you how to code that particular sepsis, what issues you might come up. Those kind of things will help you more than printing out this mess and trying to read this and follow this once you get into the exam. So for process of elimination, if you were going to do this exam test question like it was a CPC exam, and you had 90 seconds to figure out whether this one was, which answer is correct, this one's going to be a challenging one just because of what the material is. But we can see right away we've got 3 answers that start off with 32. So just numerically, I would get rid of D. Oh, really don't like that. I didn't mean to draw it like that. Can't draw a straight line today. But I would get rid of this one because it's so different compared to the other ones. AAPC has a pattern of picking two answers that are going to be basically super close and the same, and then you will have words up here in the beginning of the test question that are going to make you think that it's one answer or another. What, Travis? We'll discuss it after my live, honey. Go back to your room where you're supposed to be. That was not important to interrupt me. Come on. I got one that's in trouble. Woo, he's in trouble. He got in trouble at school. So now we can see that most likely the easiest way to tell which answer is going to be correct is if we look at the second number. Because if we go over here, we're still missing one over here that could really tell. But those are right in an order. And we can pick key terms from each one of those to search up here to see which one is the exact answer, because each one's going to be different. So I would run to this code. It's the first, oh, this one's the first in sequence because it's the 84 or the 34. Sorry. So 12034. I go there first. So we've got 34, 35, and 36. So first things first is we need to know what heading we're under. We're under intermediate for all of them. And then it's just going to be based off size. So I'm assuming, knowing AAPC, there's probably a couple of intermediates and we need to add some numbers together to pick out the right answer. So I'm looking for key terms that say intermediate in my test question, because this one's going to have lots of numbers here, but I only need to know which ones are intermediate. Which ones were the ones that had sutures involved? We've got a simple, it's not intermediate. This one's intermediate. That one's complex. Here's the other intermediate. So I just need to add those two numbers together. So I'm getting 15.9, right? Where is 15.9? That's going to be in the 3-5 range. So we know A is going to be our answer. There's absolutely no way it could be any other test question at all. To help, you need to know that all lacerations are first categorized by simple, intermediate, and complex. You add the total sum of the length that you sewed, that total sum that you sewed per simple, per intermediate, per complex. You just need to know that particular guideline in your head, which I write in on my CPT book. This one is add the sum. Some of them you do the square footage, you have to multiply, and some of them you do per lesion, per object. You don't add nothing together. So when you're going through the integumentary system, you need to know the differences in those guidelines and just move it there and write it right in your box. I've got my one parent code here, and I didn't need to read the question. I didn't need to know that this is whoever and wherever and how old he was and what he was doing. I don't have to read 100 questions to get through them and pick out the answer. If you do read 100 questions, you will be done with your exam. Your 5 hours and 40 minutes is over with, and you're going to have to guess at your last 40 to 50 questions by just filling in the bubbles, number one. Plus you're going to have brain fatigue because you've got all this information from every question carrying around in your head, and then you've wasted so much time, and then you can't fully answer the last part of the exam. But if you do your exam with this process of elimination, having your book prepped, knowing a little bit about your guideline so that you know how it's going to be done to be able to add and pick out the right answer. You'll be good for your exam. You need to be able to get done with each question within 90 seconds to be able to have time banked for stretching, for getting a drink, for even going to the bathroom if you have to. 5 hours and 40 minutes is a long time to focus on one thing at one time. This will help you with your confidence once you figure this out. It's not easy to let go of not checking every single CPT code, checking every word and verifying that everything's right. You're not going to have time to index anything. You're going to have to let go of all that. You're going to have to let go. And you're going to have to trust yourself in being able to logically, numerically get rid of numbers just based off their numbers. Know that you don't even need to look up codes because it doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, because the only ones that are going to matter after you do the process of elimination are obvious ones that are different. And then you just need to pick out your key term and do a word search. This key term was actually an addition problem that we had to do, and we needed to look up the 15. So hopefully this is helping. There's our answer. Let's move on to another section here. So let's look at these numbers. And we've got lots of modifiers here, and on this particular one, you truly do not have to worry about any of the modifiers. Sometimes you can eliminate answers by looking up modifiers, especially if 2 of them have a modifier and 2 of them don't. These you don't, because they're in every answer. So don't worry about those at all. For process of elimination, of course, I love 75, 76, and 77 because they're all super close together. And these are all super close together also. So nothing hard there. We're going to go to 2, 4, 5, 7, 5. So my header for 2, 4, 5, 7, 5 is under fractures and dislocation. So 2, 4, 5, 7, 5 is open procedure. This is another area that I work on in these books. If my procedure is open, it's supposed to be colored in green, circle. If it's closed procedure, it's circled in orange. Sometimes my ink went crazy, but one's an open, one's a closed, and then the 77 is the same thing. This is a child code underneath the closed. And on this one, the 6-5, the last one, D, is super, super close because it's right here with another one, and it's under closed too, which they're all so close together, it doesn't hurt to know the difference. We only have one open. We have 2 closed. If AAPC was going to do something tricky to you, because there's only one opened, and then the other 3 are closed procedures, I'd get rid of that open one because it's probably not going to end up being anything related to an open procedure. Just saying, it's probably going to be all closed because they've got more closed picked out. So we've got they're all under the same humeral, so you can't pick out that keyword at all. The differences are closed with manipulation, closed with, or open with internal fixation, sorry. What's the difference between this one? The 60, do I need to know the 65? It's a fracture. Oh, there's the differences. One's an epi, one's a con fracture. Epi and con are the two major key terms here. We've got two epis, but this one's going to be open, and I swear I don't think it's going to be an open because it's going to try to pick the two closed. So we need to look for those two keywords first, an epi or a con. So let's search our little test question here. And I like to do a word search from the last word and go in reverse order and look for words that it could be. And I do up here, the very beginning, see epi. So I know it's going to be epi, so we can get rid of the 76, 77. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be 77 because that one is under the other word. We can get rid of 76 because it's also part of the con. 76 and 77 are both part of the con word, which will not help us. So the only difference is the 75 and the 65. So we've got 65 and 75, right? And one is open and one is closed. So we need to look for a word that means opened or closed. So did he have anything that was done with a laceration or anything other than just manipulation? And they just did a reduction. Knowing that the word reduce means the same thing as manipulation would help a whole lot in your terminology. Not termination. Oh no. AKA did they use reduce or reduce? So having that information in here as far as AKAs when you find them is super helpful. Manipulation means reduced. Anything with any type of internal fixation, they would have had to cut the body open and added those wires or the metal bar where they screwed in the screws. So internal fixation would have been something like that. Just a manipulation is just they put you under anesthesia and jerk real hard on that bone and put it back into place. So that's all that happened on that one. And because we knew to get rid of the humeral con, we could get rid of 76 and 77. So B and C got taken away that for that reason. Then the 75 and the 76, the differences between those were closed and open, and that should be a green thing. I don't know what happened to my green that day, but I think I had it green and then I went over it in orange, and then sometimes I have brain farts. That's why it's so important to keep consistent with what you've got going on here. You can see here on the other side, just one little question I got mixed up on and circled it the wrong way. But it truly helps if you have your book prepped correctly to be able to eliminate these super quick. I just wanted to mention that the modifiers weren't needed to do anything because they were included on the exam questions for both. But I wanted to mention what modifier 54 was going to be used for, because it was one we don't often see anymore. Really, haven't seen it in forever in a CPC exam question. And this is an old exam from 2020, I think. One of their old exams from previous years. And an actual exam, not a practice exam. But they used the modifier 54 last year, and I don't think they've been using it this year, but I wanted to discuss it because 54 means that that a physician performed the surgery only. He's not going to follow up with the patient. He was just some ER doc in the middle of the night who does not follow up and see any patients at all for anything that he does to them. He will give the patient a referral to an orthopedist to follow up with and get post-operative care. So that's an interesting modifier I just haven't worked with since April, since I started helping people. And then we know what modifier 51 is. It's a multiple procedure performed, but they didn't do 2 bones. They only, I guess they considered the multiple procedure was putting on the arm splint, but I still don't see where they saw that they did multiple procedures, other than they did anesthesia and then they reduced the fracture. I'm not quite sure where they came up with that, but I wrote them down because they considered that to be part of the answer. And of course you needed your modifier for which side of the body, because you have 2 arms, 2 wrists, 2 elbows, that kind of thing. So you've got that going on. So we knew D was our answer because it was a closed procedure. All right, let's move on to the 3000 sections. Let me catch up with some of the chat. Anesthesia hates me. I know, Jess. It's so challenging, Jess. It really is. Before we do another exam, I need to send you like just an anesthesia quiz and get you to take it timed or something, and then email it back to me, and we'll discuss the answers. May is doing hers on the 13th. Oh my gosh, so many of y'all are really doing it on the 13th. That's amazing. And Pfeiffer, I think I got you. I did. I got December 4th. Or I got December anyway. Now I've got the 4th down. Good. Jess is November 13th. Sorry, I keep moving the camera. So do any of y'all take any programs, or was it just by self-study? A lot of these people do take courses, and they just found me because either they found me on TikTok randomly one day, or they found me because I saw them suffering on Facebook, AAPC message board, and I messaged them saying, I can help you if you really want to come have some help. Some of them, like Miss Ford is Ashford, is from the AAPC course that I was a guest instructor on, and they followed me after that because they weren't getting much from their course anyway. Good job, Mir. Yeah, don't look at the answers. Try to do the questions yourself. And you can do them repeatedly over and over again, too. Even after you grade yourself, you can, retake them. Yes, anybody that takes this CPC exam, I know a ton of y'all are taking it in November. Some of y'all are even taking it this weekend. Y'all can really make an impactful difference on everybody's lives here. The reason why I do this is just so that I can help people and better their lives and have a better income source for their families, which will benefit their community, which will benefit all of us. I volunteer all my time for this. No one has to buy anything from Etsy at all. And I still help everybody and volunteer and give time and do tutoring and anything that I can do to help y'all pass, all on my own. And y'all could help me out if y'all would, that are taking the exam this weekend. If by chance you happen to be taking the exam, even just circling some of the codes that were on, or an answer that you picked as the correct answer, you thought was the correct answer, just circle the code and then let me know what those codes are later. I can pass that information on to everybody that's here suffering just like you to pass the exam. I can come up with better strategies and extra test questions that will go along with those codes to help people out in the future. Also, if you see some anatomy words that you just don't know what the difference is or what the word was, you could write a little note what the name of the word was, half the word, any part of the word down as you're trying to think of the right answer for it. And gathering that information too will also help people. And I can share that information and help more people. And y'all can be a part of helping change people's lives by sharing anything that you find out on your part of the exam. Be sure to note which exam you did take, A, B, C, D, E, F, if you by chance can gather that information. I didn't even pay attention to when I was taking mine, so I have no idea. But I didn't know ahead of time that information would have been beneficial for anybody else, because it wasn't a thought in my head. I was just taking it just to be taking it, because in my job field I kept getting asked when I went to conferences, am I a CPC? And I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not what I do. I'm an auditor. But this will shut up people. Now that I got my CPC, I can just say, yes, that's what I do, because it's not what I do, but it's the closest thing that they can relate to as to what I do. So I have it just for that reason. But then I started teaching a better way to pass the exam because so many people were suffering and I thought I could help. Anyway, you can help too if you share. Looks like Jess took a college program. It was stressful. Yeah, and she said she learned very little. And it's so hard to let go. I know, Sonia. And that's what AAPC is counting on. They're counting on you not letting go. They actually put words in those test questions that are meant to psychologically mess with you and make you think the answer is a different answer. If you do it the way I tell you here, process of elimination, they can't trick you because you're matching the word with the code and the procedure correctly based off headers without outside influences. If you want to pass it with 90% per section, telling you this way is going to help. It's stressful, it's hard to learn, and once you do learn it, it's fun actually. I would love to take the CPC exam again now that I've practiced this process and learned it better than even a thought was in my head before when I took it. To create this method, or not really create it, but I took it further than what AAPC ever said and made it into something way better. I'd love to see what I could get right now. That would be interesting. Gotta let it go. I only went over exam A, Jess. You randomly found me, Anna, A-N-A. I'm glad you randomly found me, and I hope I can help you pass your exam. Yeah, auditing HEDIS measures, super fun to go into. They deleted the 34205. Some codes have been deleted since we've done the CPC exams for sure. That one had the fluoroscope included in the measure. Sometimes they do that kind of stuff for sure. You can work on this one. This one we can't really process of eliminate anything because we've got 20, 30, 40, and then the 35 here. I can probably say with some confidence that 35 is not going to be there since it doesn't end in 0 for sure. So we can go to 54420. $20, $30, and $40. So I always recommend going to the codes first before you even read anything on the exam. Find out what your differences are before you move on. We've got 20, 30, and 40. 20, 30, and our lonely 40 down here. So we've got a shunt and another shunt. So one of them is in a cave sap, cave corp. And this is a random non-specific code. So I would be looking for cave sap, cave corp in my test question. My question has cave, but not either one of those. Super short question. And it's talking about a fracture repair. So I can go back to these, and if you know anything about being bilateral or unilateral, there's only one of those, but who knows how many of those might be in there. Nothing's matching up, right? We do have the cavernosa. No, S-U-M. It's U-M, not what they have there. So knowing that it is probably going to end up being this one, which is very vague, and it doesn't tell you anything about this particular procedure and what's going on here. This is one that if you haven't coded before or run into, you wouldn't know that this is a fracture repair. And I'll show you the answer in a minute that I got from AAPC. The problem is the answer's in the index, and you won't know that this or these aren't going to be it, other than your words are not matching up at all. If nothing matches up and you do have a non-specific code, that's going to be your answer. And you need to be able to know to let go of the test question and pick the non-specific code if things are not matching up. But if you actually went in to your index and you looked up repair, penis, injury, it's a fracture, but yeah, they're telling you have to go here. And that's where they're getting that particular answer from. It's one that wasn't obvious, wasn't anything I had run into before, and I wanted to make sure that we marked up. I didn't even have that in our CPT book notes for 2021, because you see I just put that in there, that we needed to make those notes in our CPT book for that particular repair or fracture. And it may say it maybe in some, I don't know. Wonder if it says anything in the parenthetical notes about a fracture. I don't know. I don't see anything. It's a course, it's the one with US. The course, nothing with the US. Everything else, this one does have the OSA, but it's the cave word also has a U in it, also SUM. So even that word doesn't match up. This one does, and that's why we might want to think that one, but it doesn't match up. We gotta have the correct matching of the terms. They both have US, UM in it. Anyway, AAPC says that the repair of the penile injury, even though it's a fracture, goes there to that code. So that's why I wanted to put it in with the live. Oh, yeah. What I wrote, I put AKA fracture repair, corpus, caver, SUM. Everything that said the US and then the UM, just so it matched the test question. There you go, guys. I'm caught up on chat. Let me get a drink before we go on to the next one. Look at them babies. Look at them babies. Yeah. Look at them babies. Yeah. Oh. All right. Come on. Be nice. Be nice, Mr. Camera. There we go. Thanks, Anna. That's nice to know. And she said, I need you when I took this class. I could have passed it. Oh, got in good information. Yeah. Thanks, Spencer. Did you get to see it too? I hope you did. Well, hopefully I caught you, Anna, before you take your CPC exam, and I can help you pass that. Those courses are rough. Rough, rough, rough. Sorry, the camera slipped. Okay. So right here, I wouldn't like B because it ends in 2. I like all the zeros right here. We've got one that is 1 answer, and then we've got 3 answers, and then one that's 4. Good gracious. That's kind of unusual unless you're in the lab and path area for AAPC to have that many procedures listed, but we'll see. Let's go look up. This one's the same. This one's the same, and this one's the same. Very interesting. And then all we have is this 20 and the 40. So, very interesting. Oh, so you got discouraged. Well, the class isn't going to help you pass the CPC exam anyway, so don't get discouraged. I can show you how to pass the exam for sure. And you don't need a course to pass it, so you just need to be able to do the process of elimination and pick out the right answers. And it's basically a word search. Can definitely do that. And when you get a job as a coder, you will have to learn how to code the way they want you to code based off their contracts and their own policies and procedures. It's all done differently. Some of it's capitated where you don't even send a claim because they're paid differently once a month to take care of those patients, or you send claims differently based off the contract or group provider info. So you got to learn all that on the job. You won't walk into a place knowing how to do anything, so don't worry about that. Hey Martha, so let's go look up. All those are the same. The only difference is this 87. I need to go look up this one, 58150, and I know it's in two answers. 58150. We're under hysterectomy. Looking at our thing, we are under hysterectomy. She had a hysterectomy with spleno, cysto, and a colectomy. She had like 4 things done all at once. I want to go look up this 15824. 5240, because we're super close to each other. We've got this hysterectomy, the 50, is a total hysterectomy, removal of tubes, and then its child code isn't listed as a, it is listed as a possible answer, but it has a urectomy, plexotomy, and nothing that would be part of those other questions. So I was right to eliminate that part. But then that 50 says right here in the parenthetical note, which is on a second page, it's not right underneath here, and they had room for it. They had plenty of room. They could have put that parenthetical note there. I think that, and because this parenthetical note is a possible answer too, it's like, what are y'all doing? I don't know. This one right here, that 40 does say abdominal hysterectomy. That's in that test question. The other key terms was that colectomy, and then it also said something about a cyst with the removal of the ovaries, of course, always. The ovaries. This is with and without the ovaries. It also has that in there. But the last thing that we need to check off was the creating an iliac conduct. The creation of an iliac conduct. That one has the removal of the ovaries. The cystectomy, it has the abdominal hysterectomy with the removal of the ovaries, with the colectomy, and then the cystectomy is the last thing we needed. And the cystectomy is what that removal of the bladder is, and urethral transplantation. If you didn't know that was a cystectomy, then you could get this one wrong by picking one of the other codes that separates out all those particular steps. Abdominal hysterectomy, then the something to do with the renal and all that other stuff. They're trying to make you think that it's going to be multiple procedures when this one is all the same thing, and you have to know a little bit more about anatomy with this particular question and the procedure than is normal. Cystectomy, that's removal of the bladder. I did a terrible job there. But cystectomy is the removal of the bladder, and then the urethra transplantation is the iliac conduct. So the renal, I should do these in different colors. That is for that. The bladder is the cystectomy. That whole thing of all those procedures is in this one CPT code. Everything in that one is listed there in that one code. Very unique test question right there. Because we have a lot of things you would not, even as a coder, think we're all in the same thing. We have a hysterectomy with the bilateral removal of the ovaries, of course. Then we have the removal of the bladder, and then a reimplantation or making of a urethra, and then the colectomy at the same time, just a partial one. But that is all in the same procedure. And if I'd had highlighted them in different colors, it'd probably make more sense. But I wanted to make note of this one particular code because I didn't realize when I created my notes that all that was in the same thing. We had some AKAs that aren't going to be normal terms. When you're doing the process of elimination, a lot of things are just right off the bat. You can match a term, open, close procedure, bilateral, unilateral. There's super common words, and I'm making it more difficult tonight than probably should be when I'm showing off the process of elimination, because 90% of the time it's super easy. It's super fast. It's just a word search. This one was more difficult, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this one code has so many procedures in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 procedures all into one, and we had some AKAs. That one was a rough one. Yeah. What you mean, Ange? Will you please go back to the code? Yeah, you probably mean what I'm doing right here, right? Hopefully you can see it better. But that urethra transplantation is part of your iliac conduct. Removal of the bladder is also called a cystectomy. I don't know if anybody's seen this test question. This is an old AAPC question exam. I haven't heard of anybody saying something, but a lot of people might think that their hysterectomies are easy to code. and they might be overlooking this one, thinking they got the test question right, or they have a 70% in this section of the 50 female genitalia, or the 50,000 section, and they just might chalk up one of their missed test questions as something that they don't know why or which test question it was, because they thought they were all pretty simple. And because this is the #1 surgery in the United States, more so than we do anything else in the United States, we do hysterectomies more than anything else. You know, there's no other surgery that we do more of, pretty amazing, than the hysterectomy. So even going forward, working in your career, if you happen to work in OBGYN, which was my first place I worked in, I delivered babies, and I did vasectomies and cervical cancers, and did everything in OB. I've never coded in OB, never wanted to be a coder, but this is as #1 surgery in the United States, hysterectomies will be priority for coding, obviously, but that information can help you further too, even if it doesn't help you on the CPC exam. But there's the test question 2 if you want to screenshot it, so you can look up all those words. But they're all in that one simple CPT. And here's another one for tonight. So with this one, you're welcome, Ange. We've got this lonely little 3-4 right here that we'll probably get rid of, because we've got the ones that end in 31, right? Do you need to look up the 31 if it's in every single one of the answers you're probably going to pick? Nope. So we can get rid of that one. So the differences actually in the test question is the 32, the 37, and the 72. So we need to go to those codes. The 648. 32 is the first one. So 648. Six, 4, 8, 3, 2. 64832 is an add-on code. You're supposed to use it with the 31, so that's good. It's one of our answers. 37. Where is 37? It's also an add-on code. And then 72. Ooh, I think I did a ticky-talk on this one. Is also an add-on code, which is sutures of a nerve. And the reason for this one is delayed. The reason for the other one was 37 was we were doing a suture under the medial nerve, and then this one, the 32, is for the distal nerve. Distal, median, or delayed. So we can go look at our test question to just look for those key terms to see which answer is going to be correct. And if you just skim from the last sentence up, you can see that he did damage his distal nerve. So the only one that was in the distal area box is the 32. So we know that 32 is going to be the correct answer on this one. So we can pick D. I think I have that one on a Tiki Talk, or I meant to do it on a Tiki Talk, but I've talked about it before. Sometimes it's just a matter of where you are in the body, distal, median, or if they're doing a delayed. Be sure you know what Raymond's syndrome is. I believe that has been on one of our recent practice exams, or no, CPC true exams. Don't forget, I've got the 2022 ICD10 Guidelines posted with tons of examples for you next to the guidelines, if anybody needs those, if they're planning on oh my gosh. Sarah was reading a text message. Oh, my poor children. They're so, you know, they're at that age. They're 12-year-old boys. They just don't know how to act. Good Lord. So just to recap what was on practice question or practice exam A that's being given right now by AAPC. If you happen to run across it, be sure you know that HIPICS. Be sure you know how to code cancers. My favorites to list are always knowing the differences between the guidelines for anemia and cancer. Let me see. Do I have my ICD in here? This is the older version. I got my newer ones in the, I mean, I've done some work, let me tell you. But let's see, did I mark up these guidelines for that year? Yeah. So we used to do it in the book, and I just think it's going to be so much better not being in the book. It's going to be better with hand. Instead of y'all trying to read my handwriting, y'all can, I got it all typed this year. But my favorite guidelines to make sure y'all know is your dehydration and malignancy. If they're coming in and being seen and they're dehydrated, you're going to code it first and then their malignancy next. Now, if they're coming in for anemia due to their neoplasm, you'll do your anemia first, then your neoplasm. And then if it's due to their chemotherapy or radiation, you're going to do your anemia first, your neoplasm, and then your external cause for the radiation. There's also differences in the guidelines when they're being treated for chemotherapy. You'll do that Z51 I was talking about first. And then if the reason they're being treatment is their malignancy, will be the second code. If they're being treated for their secondary malignancy during an office visit, you'll code it first and then their primary second. Just like I said earlier in the live, knowing all those differences will definitely help. Let's see. What are some more guidelines? I definitely want to make sure you know you're underdosing and you're overdosing. And if they took a medication prescribed properly, but still had a reaction to it, how do you code that? That's a different condition and a different way of coding. You'll do the condition it produced and then their medication for sure. Oh, our SARS. I don't know if there's been any SARS on those lately, but here's the medications. If they're just having an allergic reaction to a medication, you'll code it first. Then what adverse effect drug it was. The drugs are listed in the T codes. Now, if they were intentionally poisoned, you'll do the drug first and then what happened to them afterwards. This is what AAPC likes to pick on for guidelines, knowing the differences in, because they are flipped. Sometimes you do the drug first, sometimes you do the symptoms first. Knowing those differences will help out a whole bunch for your exam. Let's see. I like to know if you're delivering babies and your first baby is vaginally, no complications, your second baby is born by C-section, you're always going to code your C-section baby first because it was the most complicated procedure. Ooh, and in the integumentary system, don't forget that if you're removing a lesion and you're doing a skin or a punch biopsy and you're doing some skin tag removals, what do you code first? So like this example, we have an excision and then we have a punch biopsy. So you're always going to code your excision first, then your punch biopsies next. You're going to make sure you code the biggest procedure, the biggest thing you're removing off of a patient first. Another thing to keep in mind is usually your codes will be in descending order on the integumentary system. You'll code your biggest procedure first and then your littler things next. So you need to make sure that your codes are in the correct format before you pick that answer. That would also help out a whole bunch for the integumentary system. What time is it getting to be? It's 8:30, guys, so I am going to probably get off here. I'm going to let y'all know one more time where everything is. So we have a link in my bio you can click on. As soon as the live leaves off, it'll have a coupon for my notes that are in Etsy if you want anything from the guidelines to page by page of what I've done in my CPT book if you want all the notes. I'll teach you how to do this if you watch enough of the lives. I'll try to do these every Monday for sure, and then either a Friday or Saturday, alternating every other week due to people's work schedules and stuff. And then I try to do every Sunday night, at least 3 nights a week, an hour and a half for lives, just to teach you how to do this stuff in the books and prepare you with the process of eliminations and show you what information I've got gathered. If you want to schedule tutoring with me, you can go to my website, Medical Coding by Jen, and you can schedule tutoring there. It's $27, not that hard. And then if you want YouTube, you've got my old lives are being posted there if TikTok records them. I've got Messenger. Follow me or find me on Messenger under Jen Brewer, and you can join our mentoring group, and we talk every day about coding and practicing the exam. And then I've got the notes on Etsy, so if there's anything y'all need, let me know. You can message me on TikToks, of course, and I can get back to you there too. So I hope this has been helpful. I think we're doing another Tiki Talk on Saturday, Friday. I have one listed on Friday. So I've already got another live listed for Friday, so y'all can go on and schedule for that. If you do register for the TikTok, it lets you know when I go live. Your phone will alert you and say, hey, she's on, so you can find it really easily. And I hope this has been helpful. And please let me know if you have any questions. You can comment on any of the TikToks, and I can add any information into my lives to help you specifically too. Thanks.